I think running a marathon was something that was so impossible in my mind. It's something that I never thought I could actually do. It was the Phoenix 10K half marathon, something that our station sponsors every year. I had never ran a race in my entire life. I was simply asked to do it. I was so physically exhausted crossing that finish line, and that was 13.1 miles. And when I crossed that finish line, I remember saying to myself, there is absolutely no way that this could be a halfway point to finishing a marathon. Like, there was no physical way I could have run another 13.1 miles. The New York City Marathon would be 1 year to the date later. I lived in Lower Manhattan, and I was on my way to work that morning on September 11, 2001. I remember turning around and seeing one of the Twin Towers on fire. The reason why I chose New York City as the marathon to be my first marathon was to help me heal from 9/11. I got the call from the Pat Tillman Foundation asking me to race in their name in Pat Tillman's honor for the New York City Marathon, which is like the granddaddy of them all. But I knew at that time it was something so special and an opportunity for me to give back and say thanks. But at the same time, I said, this isn't about you right now. This is about something bigger than you. It's such a greater purpose. You know, we're talking about why I run. I run for Pat Tillman. I run for our military families. I run for the people who have sacrificed so much for this country. This is a moment for me to say thank you. This is a moment for me to say, I run for you. Running in July at 9 o'clock in the morning on the Arizona Canal is the most brutal punishment I think you can ever give somebody. And there were times where I almost mentally broke. There were times where I thought, you've run 12 miles already, that's good enough, call it a day, take the shortcut home. It was during those moments I thought of Pat Tillman. It was during those moments that I spoke out loud, that I said, Pat, give me strength. Pat, get me to this finish line. Pat, get me to the end of this training run. I have to do this. And the moments I wanted to break, I remembered Pat. And anyone who knows the story of Pat Tillman knows that he is the last man that would ever give up. Pat Tillman is the last guy who would ever stop fighting. This is a guy who gave up an NFL career to fight for our country. I was so nervous on race day that I got 3 hours of sleep the night before. It was about mile 7. I was already feeling tired. And I was hungry. Like, I hadn't eaten breakfast that day because I was so nervous. And I remember seeing this little girl and her mom, and they were both wearing a hijab. And this little girl was holding out a banana. She handed me this banana. When she handed me that banana, I reached down and I gave her a hug and I said, thank you so much, because I needed food. I thought that I was gonna pass out because I was so hungry. And it just reminded me about what is so beautiful about this country. Everyone on the Pat Tillman team and everyone in the Tillman Foundation will say this is exactly why Pat Tillman fought. I mean, there was even a moment, I think it was like mile 15, you know, of course, feeling fatigued by that point. And I remember seeing a guy with this blue t-shirt on, this Pat Tillman race t-shirt in front of me. And I remember running, eventually catching up to him, and as I was passing him, he briefly gave me a hug and he said, go, keep fighting. I will say, running that marathon and crossing that finish line is the biggest accomplishment of my life. The biggest accomplishment of my life. I have never worked and trained so hard for something, and I've never done something for as good of a cause as the Pat Tillman Foundation and giving back to our military families. Best accomplishment of my life.